Okay, so hello everyone. Is my voice is audible to you guys? Anyone can confirm?
Yeah, ma'am. Audible.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, okay. So let's start today's webinar. So hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on exploring DAM vulnerability, the API. And I'm Nandini Bharadwaj, the operating officer at Cyber Warfare Labs, and I'm really excited to have you all here with us today. So let's get started. Okay, so this webinar is presented by Cyber Warfare Labs. So Cyber Warfare Labs, a UK-based edtech company. The company is committed to addressing cybersecurity challenges with real-time and hands-on solution. Our platform allows users to refine their skills through plug-and-play practical labs and a diverse range of certification courses. So basically, our company has two main divisions. That is, uh, you can see here, that is Cyber Range Labs and Upscaling Platform. So the Cyber Range Lab, this division focuses on providing practical real-time solutions to cybersecurity challenges. It offers a virtual platform where user can engage in hands-on training through practical labs that are ready to use. And the second one, that is upscaling platform. So a CW Labs offer a wide range of on-demand courses designed for individual at all skills level. That is from beginner to intermediate to advanced. And their instructor-led training services are available to educational institute, government agencies, and corporate organizations. That is available both online and offline training options. And here you can see this is the major cloud vendors that we cover in our courses, and that is red team, purple team, and blue team. This our architecture is made up of. So let's move on to next slide. Okay, so before we dive into the topic, let's introduce our speaker of today's webinar, that is Rohit Sai Krishna. So Rohit Sai Krishna is a security researcher with an year of hands-on experience in cybersecurity. Rohit specializes in pen tester testing, focusing on vulnerability identification and system security. His interest includes API security, web application security, and enterprise security. So that's it. And so let's welcome Rohit Sai Krishna to guide us through exploring DAM webinar. And like if you have any question related to any topic, feel free to ask at the end of the webinar. And you can also type them into the question box of this platform. Also, we will be providing you the attendance certificate and PDF material plus video recording of this webinar within 48 hours. So that's it. So without further ado, I would like Rohit to take over and let's get started. Thank you all, and I hope you will enjoy today's webinar. Thanks.
Hi there, I am Rohit. I work as a cybersecurity intern in Cyber Warfare Labs. So today, in this webinar, we're going to talk about DAM Vulnerable API. It is a deliberately insecure API designed for educational and practice purposes. Uh, so today, we discuss these topics: API security overview and introduction of DAM vulnerable API, common API vulnerabilities that are added in DAM vulnerable APIs, and API testing tools, and lastly, we demonstrate hands-on API testing. Next, move on to API security overview. So first, you need to understand API. APIs facilitate data exchange and integration among diverse applications, but they also introduce potential vulnerabilities. Any weakness in an API can serve as a gateway for attackers to compromise systems, steal data, or disrupt services. By studying damn vulnerable API, security practitioners or cybersecurity learners gain a deeper understanding of these vulnerabilities and better equipped with to protect against them. One key part of keeping our digital systems secure is making sure the application programming interfaces APIs are well protected. APIs act as the pipelines that allow different software systems to share data and work together. This security overview sheds light on critical facets of API security, emphasizing its indispensable role in ensuring the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data and services. CIA triad. APIs have become the backbone of connected applications, facilitating smooth communications among various services and platforms. Ensuring the security of these APIs is absolutely crucial because they often serve as the doorways for not only legitimate users but also potential hackers. Well, a well thought of out API security plan is essential for protecting these entry points and the sensitive information they manage. Next point, authentication and authorization are crucial for verifying user or application identity and access. This means uh, authentication validates the identity of users or applications interacting with an API, ensuring that only authorized entities gain access. And authorization, on other hand, defines what actions or resources a user or application can access once authenticated. Together, these mechanisms enforce proper access control and minimize the risk of unauthorized access or data breaches. Next point, input validation and sanitization prevent injection attacks. This means input validation and sanitization mechanisms ensure that data proved to APIs is clean and safe, preventing vulnerabilities like SQL injection, process scripting, process request forgery, command injection, like that vulnerabilities. Next point, content security policies control resource loading on client web pages. Content security policies are meant to protect websites by setting rules that controls where web content like scripts, JavaScripts, and PHP scripts and shell scripts can come from. This it also helps to reduce the chances of certain attacks like CSRF from happening. It also lowers the risk of sensitive data being exposed to potential threats. And next point, um, token management involves securely handling API keys and access tokens. Securely handling API keys and access tokens is essential to prevent unauthorized access to APIs and the data they expose. Token management involves generating, storing, and validating tokens. ensuring that only authenticated and unauthorized parties can interact with API. Next point, data encryption is essential for data at rest and in transit. It means data encryption is essential, like putting sensitive data in a secure secret code. It ensures that this data stays confidential and can be messed with, whether it's sitting in a database or traveling across the internet. To make sure this encryption is strong and reliable, we need robust encryption techniques and rules. These are really important parts of keeping APIs safe and secure. A last point, audit trails and logging provide visibility into API activities. This means audit trails and logging provide visibility into API means when organizations keep detailed records of all the actions happening with their APIs, it's like having a security camera in a place. Those logs allows them to watch out for unusual or suspicious activity. If something seems off, they can dig into it, understand it, and resolve any security issues. These records also come in handy when it comes to following security policies or security rules. Having these audit trails and logs is like staying ahead of game when it comes to security threats. So, introduction to damn vulnerable API. Damn vulnerable APIs are is a valuable resource for learning for about API vulnerabilities that are happening in a real world. It also provides a safe environment for exploring and understanding common security flaws. Users can experiment with realistic scenarios to enhance their API security. A variety of challenges are available covering different aspects of API security, like uh, next, like these vulnerabilities, common API vulnerabilities. Uh, these are vulnerabilities, some common vulnerabilities that are in DAM vulnerable API. Authentication and authorization flaws, injection attacks, insecure deserialization, XML and JSON parsing vulnerabilities, sensitive data exposure, security misconfiguration. Now we explain about authentication and authorization flaws. We all know what is authentication and authorization. These are crucial components of API security as they determine who can access your API. Your API perform when these mechanisms flawed like this in the diagram. When an attacker uses credential stuffing with a stolen password database, he can access to unaccessed endpoints that are not accessible by outsiders. Uh, so it can lead these mechanisms, if they are flawed, it can lead to significant security vulnerabilities that can be exploited by like these malicious attackers. So these are the authorization and uh, authentication class test cases. First point, insufficiently strong authentication mechanisms. This means the ways we use to make sure we know who's using the API might not be strong or reliable enough. So as a result, there is a risk that unauthorized parties or companies or entities could get access to the API, which could lead to uh, data breaches and other security problems. In simpler terms, if our methods for checking who's who aren't good enough, It's like leaving the door open for wrong folks to come in and cause troubles. A common problem with weak API authentication methods is relying on simple API keys or tokens that are very complex and can be guessed or stolen easily. Sometimes these credentials are hardwired and to code are shared without proper security measures. This makes it quite straightforward for malicious actors or individuals to pretend to be legitimate users or apps. The danger here is that it can lead to unauthorized access to which sensitive and or features which can be extremely harmful, particularly in applications handling financial data, financial transactions, healthcare, or personal information. In essence, it's like using simple lock that anyone can pick and consequences can be severe. Next one, um, exploitable flaws in authentication. There are so many weaknesses in a security system in several APIs that verifies the identity of users or applications trying to access an API. These vulnerabilities can be exploited by attackers to gain access to the API or the database of transaction records or something like that. Even if they shouldn't be allowed in, these kinds of flaws are big deal because they can lead to serious problems like data breaches, disruptions in service provided by API, or a misuse of sensitive data. It's like having a hole in fence around your property, and if someone finds it, they can get in and cause all sorts of problems, like the example. Next, one common vulnerability that attackers can exploit is when API doesn't thoroughly validate the credentials provided during the authentication process. This means that API doesn't do a good job of making sure that usernames and passwords are genuine or not. Attackers can take advantage of this weakness in different ways, such as brute forcing attacks. In brute forcing attack, they can keep guessing usernames and passwords over and over again until they step up upon right combination. Another vulnerability that can attackers can exploit is when API mishandles tokens or session management. Tokens are often used for authentication and session cookies that are used to keep track of users' login session. When an API doesn't handle these features securely, attackers can seize these tokens and pretend to be legitimate users or gain unauthorized access. For instance, if tokens don't have a proper expiration date or revocation measures, an attacker who gets hold of a valid token of an user can keep using the API even after the user has logged out. Next, granting more access than necessary. This refers to a security problem in authentication and authorization flaws attacks. This happens when where the API grants users or applications more permissions than necessary or access rights than they actually need for their intended tasks. This creates unnecessary tasks, security risks, because it enables users or applications to perform actions or access data that they shouldn't have permission to. This can result in serious issues like data breaches, unauthorized activities, or misuse of valuable resources. Same thing happens. It is essentially like giving someone a key to every room in building when they only need access to one opening up potential for misuse or harm. Next, we go to common attack vectors that are present in authentication and authorization clause, like these three: API token theft, session fixation, ESRF, cross-site request forgery. Now, API token theft is a attack vector. It, it means stealing authentication tokens which are given to users when they logged in. This refers to a serious security danger in which attackers, individuals, try to obtain or intercept the tokens used for authentication in an application programming interface API. These authentication tokens, for example, session cookies or access tokens, are essential for confirming users' identity and permission when they use an API. If these tokens get into wrong hands or these attackers can act as if they were legitimate users, gaining unauthorized access to resources and sensitive data. This can result in data breaches. Same thing. In simpler terms, it's like a thief stealing your house keys, allowing them to enter, do whatever they want, like that. Next one is a session fixation. This is a malicious act where an attacker or a malicious individual intentionally assigns or fixes a specific session identifier like a session ID to user ID within, an API. This security threat is sometimes also referred to as session fixation, and it possesses significant risk to user accounts and data integrity. Mainly these session IDs are essential elements of web-based authentication and session management systems. Also in API, they are used to identify and maintain the state of user session. Without repeatedly logging in a session fixation, an attacker can establish a particular session ID for a targeted user of the API of usage. They often achieve this by deceiving the user into accepting a session ID provided by the attackers. Once the user session is fixed with the attacker's session ID, the attacker can potentially take control of user session and gain unauthorized access to their account or data. In simpler terms, it's like a sneaky person managing to give you a key to your own house, and then they can enter whenever they want without your knowledge or permission. Next one is a serious one. CSRF, cross-site request forgery. This is a forging request on behalf of a user. This is mainly uh, done by attackers through phishing emails, like that. In a CSRF attack against an API, the attacker can create harmful requests and then tricks their users into unknowingly executing it, like a spam email, phishing email. This usually happens by leading the user to a malicious website or by injecting malicious code into legitimate website that the user visits. When the user opens the malicious page or interacts with it, their web browser automatically sends authenticator requests to the target API on behalf of API user. Because the request carries the user credentials, the API might mistakenly regard it as legitimate, resulting in unintended actions being carried out by attackers. A common scenario involves attackers taking advantage of fact that users are often already logged in into a target application like a banking website or a social media platform or email service. Attackers can deceive users into performing actions they didn't intend to, such as altering their email address, initiating financial transactions, deleting data. To put it simply, simple terms, we can explain like this. It's like someone tricks you into signing a document without you realizing it, and the document contains actions you didn't want to take. In the context of API, these actions might involve making unauthorized actions. Next, we move on to injection attack. There are very serious vulnerabilities that are in APIs. These are most common and critical security threats that APIs face. These attacks occur when attacker manipulates input data, like here in the diagram. They, they manipulated data by injecting a payload and sending it to API server, and then it goes to database server. There, this vulnerability triggers and returns the attacker's intended uh, behavior, and the data sent back to attacker. These are very serious ones. Next, we discuss how these injection attacks happen. Injection attacks involve maliciously injecting untrusted data or code into application or a system to exploit vulnerabilities. Attackers use input fields or parameters in URLs like that, and to insert malicious content is potentially compromising the application's security. There are several types. Some of them he mentioned here. First one is SQL injection. We all know what SQL injection is. This is a typical injection that are found in many SQL databases. This happens by exploiting SQL queries to manipulate the database. And then we have cross-site scripting. This is very well known and most exploited vulnerability in the web applications and also in API. These normally these are done by injecting malicious scripts to API used by other users. Next, we have this attacker command injection. This can be executed by introducing arbitrary commands to the server, and then uh, for example, we use the Linux command ls to the server. It gives back what folder, what files present in it, like that. Next, we have insecure deserialization. In the context of APS, this insecure deserialization is a significant security vulnerability where attackers manipulate serialized data to execute arbitrary code on a server. Break it down. It has two types how the deserialization happens. First, serialization. the process of converting complex data to structures or objects into format that can be easily stored or transmitted, often as binary or text data. Is in diagram. These are often think of it as a packaging of data for shipment. And then opposite of serialization. Uh, Deserialization is a process of converting serialized data, already serialized data, back into original form. It's like unpacking the data from arrival. APIs commonly use deserialization to process data they receive from clients or other sources. This income data is serialized in serialized form, and the API needs to convert it back to the format or with. For example, attackers can exploit uh, insecure deserialization by tampering with serialized data. They alter it in a way that tricks the API behavior unexpectedly or maliciously when it tries to convert and use the data. This can lead to a wide range of security risks and consequences. Here, how attackers exploit deserialization. Attackers exploit deserialization concepts to execute malicious code. Also, attacker modifies serialized data to execute arbitrary code, as I explained before. Attackers modify serialized data to alter application behavior, as I explained before. Next, we'll move on to XML and JSON parsing vulnerabilities. APIs parse data in two forms, XML and JSON, that are well known. While, while they offer versatility and easy to use, they also present security risks and when parsed improperly by the API. We take a JSON first. Um, JSON parsing vulnerabilities can expose API to risk. Most vulnerabilities are in JSON form. There are two types of attacks: JSON injection, but this means injecting a JSON payload in a request that's sent to API, and then it exploits in the server. And after exploiting, it gives off sensitive data to attack. Uh, Insecure JSON deserialization is another type of attack. attack. Next, we move on to parsing language XML. XML parsing vulnerabilities can lead to security issues. This has two types of attacks: XML, external entity injection (XXE), and there is a billion logs attack, which is old attack. Billion logs attack is a denial service of attack uh, that targets parsers of XML documents that are uh, APIs. This attack is also known as XML bomb previously. Next, sensitive data explorer. There are no sensitive data exposure. Sometimes API misconfigures some endpoints, leaving sensitive data to outsiders. APIs which often handle sensitive data such as user information, financial reports, personal details are primary targets for attackers seeking to exploit this vulnerability. This sensitive data exposure uh, happens when these are not properly done. APIs, mishandling these 2 points. Mishandling sensitive data can lead to exposure, like exposing your API keys on GitHub or something program sites, and lack of encryption can expose data in transits. Encryption is a must in every function in APIs as well as other applications. Next, we move on to security misconfiguration. This is happens in every API which are not configured properly. Security misconfiguration are most prevalent and dangerous vulnerabilities affecting APIs today. These misconfigurations can expose sensitive data provided by provide unauthorized access and lead to data breaches. See in the diagram, the attacker requests uh, admin page. He changes into request method to get method. This misconfiguration leads to gain access to restricted resources. Here, main vulnerability is misconfig in headers. There are 2 types of misconfigurations. One is exposed debugging information, default credentials, and unrestricted access, and unnecessary services that are not unlocked. Misconfigured security as discussed in our diagram. These exposed debugging information. When APIs expose error messages or debugging informations in their responses, then this is severe, leading to data exposure, and this is a main problem. Using default credentials to API components or services, also not using restricted access. This leads to unauthorized users to access sensitive data and resources, and unnecessary services not turned off or remained not switched off. Unused or unnecessary endpoints or services remain active. Next, last one, misconfigured security headers, as discussed in diagram. The API responses lack essential security headers or contain incorrect head settings. Next topic, discuss about API security tools. API is tested by security tools developed by many developers and security researchers. These play a vital role in safeguarding APIs from various threats and vulnerabilities. Next, we want to. There are 3 types of security API tools. First one is API security posture tools. These are used in uh, these provide visibility into security states of APIs, like giving our visibility of how APIs working. For example, Swagger, also some API gateway management tools. Next, API runtime security tools. These are like antiviruses, like that. They detect and prevent malicious records in real time. For example, we are now on firewalls, API rate limiting tools. These limit the requests that are sent by a user. Next, mains, and we focus on security testing because we are using these tools in a test, DAM on the API. These security test tools identify vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. Example, Postman is famous tool, Boxwood, and open source tool, Jet Attack Proxy. Now is demo time. Now I will show you some of the examples of vulnerabilities that are in DAM vulnerable APIs. See, uh, I captured a request in Boxwood of an endpoint login. Now it also accepts application JSON. We send the username and password. Now it shows, then we send it. I think it is not found. Now we let's and we use an SQL injection payload. As you can see, SQL injection payload through JSON format leads to login successful. This is a vulnerability, SQL vulnerability that that is in some DAM vulnerable APIs. Next, I will showcase IDAR vulnerability. This is an endpoint for show user's profile. User profile ID is 0. I will send it. It says user profile. Now we send user ID to 1. This is a vulnerability that gives attackers to leads to admin profile, admin unrestricted access to admin, but it gives admin profile is IDAR vulnerability. Now another captured request of endpoint of an API command. This is a command injection. Now I will send a payload. is it this is a payload that gives password file in many Linux operating systems. I will send it to API request. As you can see, this is a command injection that gives off CIF output, the password file, the server that API resides. You can also use ls command, also send it. As you can see, it shows current directory. This is this is vulnerabilities like this are in DAM vulnerable API. That's all for today's webinar. You can read further using these books. API security, how to properly secure APIs by John Doe, and mainly refer OAuth API security top 10 from OAuth. Also, go to these links. Thank you for attending this webinar. For any queries, mail to this mail. Email is also you will get attendance certificate for this webinar. You can learn so many cyber security courses from our website. You can check out our website. Thank you. If anyone has questions, have anyone have questions to ask? How input validation and sanitization prevent injection attack? By using whitelisting the some inputs that attackers use, we can sanitize those inputs and can prevent some injection attacks. Is my answer clear? Yeah, I can show you the differences. Yes, there is a uh, audience delivered attendance certificate. Uh, they will send to your mail. Any questions? Also, materials also you can access. Also, you can access previous webinars from our website. If anyone have questions, please ask. Okay, then I'm closing the session.